in NASCAR.com Studio 3 with Ray Evernham. Won a couple races in his day as a crew chief on the box for Jeff Gordon. You have a new show out at Glory Road, and one of the episodes upcoming, we're talking about NASCAR, controversial finishes in racing all the way around. So NASCAR, I'm sure, has made the list a couple of times. So let's jump right in. 1959 Daytona 500.
First race at Daytona.
Yeah,
controversy.
One of the most. So, I mean, how did people find out who won that race? Because they didn't know when they left, or they thought they knew.
Well, believe it or not, Bill France Sr. had to ask for pictures and, were from the grandstands and people like that, because they just never really thought that they were going to have a camera right on the starting line. So that race, being the first race at Daytona Speedway, really ended up having them do a lot of things that they still do today with the finish line cameras and whatnot. But it was a couple days afterwards before they finally said, okay, Lee Petty actually won that race, and it was from a film from someone who was inside the track, but not a NASCAR official.
So I know you're a big guy on nostalgia. Can you imagine just kind of weighing, today we get everything on our phones, instant. A couple days later, you wake up, you pick up the newspaper, and Lee Petty's all of a sudden the winner of the biggest race in stock car racing.
Well, I think that's one of the reasons that NASCAR tries so hard to have everything set before they go. Because I remember Bill France Jr. saying, I don't want my fans to leave the racetrack not knowing who won the race. And they, now with the scoring and the photos and the inspection and everything, that's pretty happening. They're making it happen, but people can be disqualified and what now. But I can tell you, when I first started, people were sitting in you had a scorer. NASCAR had a chief scorer, Marks Metcalf, and then you had to have a scorer, and they did that all by hand. And there weren't really electronic stuff. It was a matter of counting laps, so it was real easy. You got a 500 lap race at a place like Martinsville or Bristol. It's real easy to miss a lap, gain a lap, and there was a lot of protests that went on.
All right, let's fast forward to 1991 Sonoma. Ricky Rudd turns Davey Allison. A lot of people upset after that race on both sides of the fence. Let's start with Davey. I mean, he was spun out. NASCAR awards him the win. What do you make of that one?
That was something I think at that time was unprecedented, right? To take the race away from the leader, and what they did was give him a time penalty, which was not uncommon in sports car racing with contact. But that was one of those ones that call came right from the ivory tower, if you will, and they said, no, we're not going to let this happen. But when NASCAR took that victory away from Rudd and gave him the time penalty and gave it back to Davey Allison, it set a pretty huge precedent, and it really is funny how the fans can be so polarized, because it's not about what's right or wrong. It's about whether you're cheering for this guy or that guy. And if you got to remember, it was not only just Allison and Rudd, it was Ford and Chevy, so it was pretty big.
Ford and Chevy, Waddell Wilson, who's going into the Hall of Fame, was a crew chief for Ricky Rudd at the time. And personalities as well. I know Gordon Earnhardt, that's a rivalry everyone remember, and two personalities that everyone remember. But Ricky Rudd was the rooster for a reason, and everybody loved Davey Allison because he was Bobby's son. So just all the players in that just make that just an interesting kind of event there in Sonoma.
That going back to those times, that's something that certainly I'd like to see more of in our sport now. Those personalities, like you said, they couldn't have been more different. Rudd, very aggressive, very serious, whatever. Davey, heck of a race car driver, but a little bit more laid back, having fun, and he was from the Allison family. He was one of the Alabama gang, and Ricky was a little bit of an outsider. Chesapeake, Virginia, and kind of busted his way in there a little bit. Came out of go-karts. I mean, who comes out of go-karts, man? You come out of the dirt track, and that day, I think those rivalries and things like that are what really exploded NASCAR in the 90s.
All right, we're talking about personality. There's no greater personality on the racetrack, or was, than Darrell Waltrip. He had the nickname Jaws for a reason. You had Bodine involved in this next one as well, and a little bit of Earnhardt sprinkled in. I think he was leading late in the race. But 1990 North Wilkesboro, a track that all fans kind of love looking back on. Explain this one to us.
Well, that one, again, going back to what I was saying with the scorecards, you're on a little track like North Wilkesboro, and you're scoring by hand, and you really couldn't keep track. And Wilkesboro, the tires would wear out so fast that if you come in and put on new tires, you could run 2 or 3 seconds faster per lap on a short track than the leader. So Bodine pits earlier, and he's gaining up, and then Waltrip pits, and and Earnhardt pits and the caution comes out. And what they didn't realize is that they waited so long before they pitted that Bodine had actually become the leader, and I think he was on a lap by himself. So then by the time they're figuring out, they wasted a lot of laps. He shoots in and puts new tires on, and those guys are just, man, they're screwed. And it was all a matter of scoring. But Wilkesboro was one of the trickiest racetracks to ever crew chief a race on, because you could be sitting there leading the race and be a lap down in a heartbeat if you weren't paying attention to the pit cycle.
Yeah, all right, that sounds good. And tell people where they can catch Glory Road.
They can catch Glory Road on NBCSN. We're on normally on Tuesdays at 6 p.m. We go to Wednesdays sometimes, but you can catch us in and out because they play the heck out of those things, and we have a blast doing it.
All right, Ray Evernham, he's got TV shows, he's working on old race cars, and he does a little bit of racing himself. We appreciate your time. We know you're a busy guy.
Thank you.